everybody! Well, I'm doing something new today, and something a little fun and a little different. I'm doing another retrospective today on another Dragon Ball property dub. And which one is it? Well, it's gonna be the Blue Water dub to Dragon Ball GT. I've gotta say, this is one of the most interesting dubs I have ever seen of Dragon Ball. Remember how I talked about my Ocean dub retrospective of how good the Ocean dub to the first 3 DBZ movies were because they actually followed the Japanese script exactly to a T? Well, the Blue Water dub of GT actually does that, making it a much more superior script-wise product to Dragon Ball GT than Funimation's version, which is honestly a complete and utter trash fire. Now, before we get started, don't get me wrong, I love the Funimation dub to Dragon Ball GT, especially watching it in English with the Japanese soundtrack playing. There is a lot of good things. Stephanie Donnelly as Kid Goku is great. I absolutely enjoy a lot of the actor and voice actor performances that went into this, but the script wise is just terrible. I mean, it completely weighs off the thing. You know, it did what Z's original dub did itself too with Funimation, and it's not that great. It's honestly trash fire. But if you go into watching the Funimation dub, which is honestly just going in with an open mind, like you would say the original Dragon Ball Z dub Funimation did after they took it over from Ocean dub, then it's not that bad. It's just you're going in with an open mind, but preferably, if I want to get more engaged with the story and characters, the Blue Water dub is the one I would honestly want to watch. So let's sit back and let's talk about Dragon Ball GT's biggest and best English dub story-wise going in forward. Now, these guys may not sound the best, but following the script is honestly what I really enjoy. And we're going to get into it right now, right here. Well, let's start in with how it started. This dub was actually formed in the early 2000s. The company, which had been known for doing some really great voice work with English dubs to other properties such as Gundam Z or Gundam Zeta in some titles, or Mobile Fighter G Gundam's voice cast, and the original Hunter x Hunter English dub cast from the original series before Funimation redubbed it years later. This one was taken over with GT, and it was marketed into Canadian and UK TVs, and honestly, it was done really well. The people who do the English voices of the characters still voice act to this day, and there are some notable names out there. In fact, some voices still go on, and they still do products to this day. Some have actually moved over to regular Canada, and they work with Ocean dub still. But some notable names was like Dave Petit, who did narration for Gundam Z or Gundam Zeta, and he also was known as Master Asia in the Mobile Fighter G Gundam series. It's honestly a very interesting choice because Dave Petit would come back later on to do some more extreme voice work throughout the run of this GT series, and his most notable role being the voice of Mr. Satan, and honestly being a very better version of Mr. Satan than, well, Chris Rager, which I'm not going to do a dub battle because this is a retrospective, and I'll get more into it. But however, yeah, this was mainly airing on UK, Canadian, and some other cross-country English-speaking television countries. And how was it done and handled? It was handled really well. Unfortunately, there is no DVD release to this version of GT, which is sad and unfortunately, it goes without saying that, well, that's about it. Not very many people know about this dub, and there really isn't a huge following. Now, I do have some friends from Canada that remember this version and are pretty upset that this does not have any kind of release, but there are archives of it, and people have found it, and they do put it up on streaming sites that aren't exactly legal, but you can watch it, and you can download torrents to it if you want to see this dub of the version. Now, I'm going to talk about the casting choices that go on here. However, I believe this dub, what it did and how it impacted GT was following it script for script, and we're going to get into that when I talk about the casting choices. So let's move on to, well, the casting choices, and we'll go so on and so on. First we have Goku. And now we're going to go with an order of the appearances. There is Kid Goku, who is played by Zoe Saussure. God, I hope I pronounced that right. And the way she handles Goku is honestly really well done. And you may find her voice familiar if you're a fan of Mobile Fighter G Gundam. She does the voice of Sai Saishi, and that's about it. Her career isn't as well known in the voice acting realm. I believe she focuses more on singing, but what do I think of her Goku in general? Honestly, it's great, and I really, really enjoy it. She kind of gives Goku more of this innocent vibe to him, and yet there's a much more respectful tone to his voice. It follows the script. She kind of captures the original Japanese voice actress's Kid Goku's voice that they were going for in GT. It can be lighthearted, but she can do really, really well with the voices. In fact, I would say it is on par with Stephanie Donnelly's Kid Goku from Dragon Ball. And it just kind of fits. I do like the much more mature tone. And honestly, here is some of the dialogue that she did do for Kid Goku's voice in this. And it sounds different, but I do like the tone that she does give Kid Goku. So I'm going to play on the clips, and then I'll get back to talking about the other voice for Goku as an adult.
There was some clean, tasty, fresh water down there. Well, if that's how you feel, sure can. This is going to be a good match. We'll see.
Of course, this version of Goku isn't alone. There is also another Goku voice later on who took over as the adult version, and that would be Jeremiah Yerk, who honestly, sounding-wise, isn't how I picture a Goku would sound, but script-wise and etc., I honestly think he's okay as Goku. He's not the best, he's not the worst. The worst actually goes to Stephen Bloom from the GT Final Bout game. And if you guys want to see my ranking on English adult Goku voices, go check that out. It's on my channel somewhere. I did a video on it last year around this time, so it's somewhere around there. Anyhow, yeah, Jeremiah Yerk isn't terrible, but he does capture kind of a pretty good, interesting section to Goku. He's not as cocky or savage sounding as Sean Schimmel's voice, who would do Super Saiyan 4 Goku later on, but he does have a pretty decent tone to it, and honestly, I've got to say, he sounds rather well. I mean, it's just an average Joe voice. Is he as good as, say, Peter Kalamis, Sean Schmiel, or Kirby Morrow, or Ian James Corlett? No, but if you're looking for a quick cash-in on his voice, he does really well. He matches the script, and I've got to say, he's not too bad to listen to. He's not grating on the ears, and he does capture Goku's personality decently well. Give it a listen yourself here.
Just a little farther. Now! Kamehameha!
we have Pan's voice actress for the Blue Water dub, Caitlin Medrick. I'm really hoping I'm pronouncing that right. And what can I say about her performance as Pan over the other one? Well, like I said, if you want a dub battle, I did one of them on here years ago. Like 2 years ago, I did a dub battle of Blue Water versus the Funimation dub. But what can I say about her performance as Pan as a whole? I've got to say, this is probably the best voice for Pan that has ever been done. Even rivaling the Japanese voice actress's performance. She captures the innocent, bossy little girl, yet kind of the more mature aspect of the character wanting respect and demanding the respect that she needs. And she sounds about the right age too. Honestly, that's really hard to do. Trying to capture the perfect essence of the little kid performance. See, Zoe was able to capture Kid Goku's voice as an adult in a kid's body, but this is an actual little girl who's trying to act like an adult and wants respect. Now, I have nothing against the Funimation version of Pan's voice, but she can be a bit grating at times, a little loud, a little annoying, and honestly, she sounds a little too old for the role. Caitlin, however, sounds excellent. She sounds perfect, and it's a really perfect balance. She can sound sweet, she can sound cocky, she can give off a pretty good air of voice work for Pan herself. Honestly, this is probably the best casted voice for her, and I'm honestly really impressed with this casting. I used to hate Pan before I watched the Japanese version of GT and before I watched this dub of GT. I used to just find Pan as more of an annoyance. But she's able to capture, this version is able to capture the Japanese version of Pan perfectly and sound a whole lot less grating here. And the only way I could really show you what I mean is by letting you listen to a few clips of her voice and performance of the character. So, here we are. Caitlin's Pan, let's roll it.
You got it, and we're both fully refreshed. And now that we know your true strength, we're gonna waste you with all we got. Check it out, Grandpa. The cracks in the It'll take some getting used to, but it's better than that monkey thing you had going on.
Next we have Trunks, and he is played by Matthew Erickson in this case. And what can I say about him? I really am not really sure who Matthew is, honestly, and to be really honest with everyone, I know he is probably very well accomplished and etc., but I don't find him to be the right fit for Trunks, which I honestly believe Eric Vale is the one and only true fit for Trunks, but this guy does do a pretty decent job here. Unfortunately, I don't have any actual footage or etc. to play within his run of being Trunks, but from what I can give is he does a very good job, and honestly, I think he's really well done. I mean, he's nowhere near as good as Eric Vale's version can be, but he does give some sort of likeness to it, copying the script to a pretty good T, and getting it down to Trunks' Japanese persona. Which, if you're like me, you're a big dumb American, you honestly enjoy his English cocky voice that Eric Vale is able to give to the character, but don't count him out. Matthew Erickson did do a pretty good job, but for being able to be one of the main characters throughout the first season of GT, or the very first saga of GT, gathering the Dragon Balls, the Black Star Dragon Balls, it is probably one of the weaker performances out of the Blue Water dub run, and if you're so used to being stuck with him in the very first few sagas, it could be a little kind of weak-ish, I think I could say. So, yeah. Other than that, I think he's a pretty good job, and he's better utilized as more of a background character later on. Anyhow, here is a clip of his voice. Let's go on.
Baby? It can't be. You're still alive?
Now that we're, done with our main primary characters, I'm not really going to do Giro/Gi because I don't kind of count him as a main cast, but I'm going to talk about some secondary characters that do help move the plot along as the story goes on, and those next characters are going to be basically Mr. Satan, the Kibito Kai, and Elder Kai as for our last bit of the good ones, and then I'll talk about the villain aspects, the main villain aspects, in the next portion of the cast. So let's just keep on with that. First is Vegeta, who is now played by Roger Rhodes, and his performance isn't anything too memorable. Honestly, out of most Vegeta voices, the worst has to be Moneybags from the Dragon Ball GT Final Bout game, and I don't know, he's just terrible. But Roger Rhodes isn't anything too memorable, and he doesn't really stick in your mind, but he does kind of give it a kind of vibe of Brian Drummond / the Japanese voice actor mix of the Ocean dub and the Japanese voices respectively, but he's not exactly memorable. He's not the worst voice for Vegeta that's ever been, and he's not the best either. Roger kind of gives a bland-ish performance. However, he gives Vegeta a much more mature tone, much like the Japanese version himself, who is very memorable in many ways. He doesn't have that Sabat arrogant attitude that is known really well to the English cast of the Funimation dub. You know, that asshole attitude where he's still overly cocky and kind of a prick, but he's still watchable and very likable. But he's not as focused on as you would say, and it is kind of painful to really have to listen to his voice performance. So this is where the Blue Water dub's voice soundings, this is where they kind of hurt. In no way am I saying the voice actor is bad at all. I'm just saying he didn't have a good enough grasp on the character as, say, Chris Sabat, Brian Drummond, and the Japanese voice actor himself, respectively. But he does his own thing, and it's not terrible. But take a listen for yourself.
Blast that Saiyan clown! Why do you have to be stronger than me anyhow? I must be more powerful than Kakarot! Ah! I'll never forget the humiliation I felt when I first learned the truth.
Of course, Roger Rhodes would also be voicing another main character of the group again. That would be, well, Kibito Kai. In this version, he actually plays Kibito Kai a lot better. And again, I have nothing against Roger himself. He's fantastic. I love him as Chibbity Crockett in G Gundam. But honestly, I'm so used to Kent Williams' soft-spoken nature to Supreme Kai / Kibito Kai that I honestly kind of have my voice monitor set mentally to that. But he does capture a pretty good voice for Kibito Kai, and he makes him a little less jagged and a little less soft-spoken at the same time. It's not a full-out imitation of the Japanese or Kent Williams version either, but it is pretty darn decent, and I've got to say, well, you got to hear it for yourself to see what I'm talking about. He does move the plot along, so I do count him in the final group of the good guys.
Yes? Bring me some large pliers, please. Pliers? But what for? Well, sorry, Ancestor, I wouldn't know where to look.
I'm going to do one more good guy character before I move on to the big villains of GT. And these good guy characters, well, this good guy character is Mr. Satan. I'm giving special mentioning to him because he's played by Dave Petit or Dave Pettit. I can't remember how to pronounce the name. It's been so long. And Dave Petit, like I have said before in the past, is a very good voice acting choice for me. Anyhow, I mean, he really does capture a really good likability and maturity to Mr. Satan that, well, Chris Razier or Ocean Dub voice performance, or hell, even the Japanese voice version couldn't capture to Mr. Satan. he's able to make him sound wiser but strong at the same time, and many G Gundam fans will know him as the English voice to Master Asia from G Gundam. So yeah, and he was also the narrator in Gundam Z or Gundam Zeta, whichever, and he does have a very memorable, very strong voice. In fact, this is probably the best way Mr. Satan himself has sounded, to me anyway. Dave just has a really strong likability in his voice that just really hits it at home for you. You actually like his character, and when I was watching, I really like the turmoil he faces when he's about ready to give up his title, him missing Majin Buu at the time. It's just fantastic. I love it. And it's well done. And him being able to hit it at home, capturing it with the script, is just awesome. Take a listen for yourself.
Even I can't beat the aging process. So whoever wins today's tournament will officially become my successor, and I will gladly step aside.
Next is the villains of GT. Now, I'm not going to do every single villain of GT in their cast voices. Just the main villains of that saga. So General Rildo and stuff, I'm not really going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about all 7 of the Shadow Dragons either, because I'm sure you guys are wanting me to get to the other points of this retrospective. But here I am here again with Dave Petit, yet again, as Dr. Mew. And how does he play this character? Well, I didn't care much for his voice in the Funimation version, having this really thick German accent for some reason, but I really like the voice Dave Petit gives him. It's more of a, I can't really pin it, like an outer worldly voice, but with the mad scientist accent on it. And what type of mad scientist accent? Any kind. I mean, there are times where he could sound like Dexter from Dexter's Lab, or moments like that. It feels like a culmination of all the voices together. Now, it's not as deep as you would think it should sound, but this voice actually kind of works for the way that the character looks. Honestly, I really like it. Dave Petit, to me, never really does turn in a bad performance. Hell, even when the guy's narrating, he's great. So, let's listen to his Dr. Mew, and you guys could see what he sounds like yourselves.
First part of your plan has proved true. The powers resonating between Android 17 and Artificial 17 were enough to open the rift.
Here, to our success.
Yes!
His voice is Adam Hunter from, well, I don't know, Adam Hunter. I'm just kidding. Anyhow, his voice for Baby was actually pretty interesting. As much as I like Mike McFarlane's, snarly, kind of Brian Drummond-ish imitation, I think Adam Hunter gives a deeper, kind of older man-sounding voice to Baby, which actually kind of fits the way the character looks more. Yeah, it's weird that the character's called Baby, and he doesn't sound anything like a baby at all. But once he gets like Vegeta's body and etc., he really starts playing the role. And I would actually say he sounds better than Mike McFarlane's version of Baby. I've got to say, he sounds gruff, a lot more gruff, and a lot more elderly. And I think that was the idea, because he kind of sounds like that in the Japanese version. And as I've said many times over and over in this video, take a listen for yourself.
I was the one who created and programmed you to gather energy for my revival, and to build the other machine mutants. But now I don't need you anymore. According to Vegeta's memory, Goku is transforming into Anuzaru. But in order to become an Uzaru, they need a full moon. This doesn't make any sense. Blast that Saiyan!
Next is Super 17. Now, I'm purposely skipping over Dr. Giro in this, or Dr. Giro is the proper pronunciation, is because he was kind of pointless in this saga. Yes, he was 17's creator, but I'm gonna skip over him anyhow, because he kind of gets killed off again in the same way. And anyhow, I'm going to go back to Super 17. Ethan Cole did the voice of him, and honestly, I've got to say, not my favorite voice for the character. I don't know what it is. Chuck Huber is 17 to me. Every time I see 17 in manga, or hell, even on just a piece of paper, it's Chuck's voice that I hear the most. Chuck's voice is very iconic, but Ethan did a pretty good job with what he was given. It's nothing groundbreaking or new. It just didn't sound very villainous to me. But however, like I said, with the other performances, it gets close to the script, and I think he tries to mirror more of the Japanese voice actor's voice. Either way it goes, it's still really good, and this is our second to last villain, so let's give him a listen to.
Are you through? Is that all you've got? I expected more. I've seen through your technique. And you disappoint me.
We're finally at Omega Shenron, who is played by Noah Umaltz. This round, I'm not going to do the other Shadow Dragons like I said earlier in the video because, well, this is the final big bad of GT. A fusion of all 7 of the Shadow Dragons, all merged into one final straw. He's so powerful, it took all of the characters, including Goku and Vegeta, having to merge again at Super Saiyan 4 to defeat him. This was awesome, and this performance he did, is even better than Sabat's performance as the big bad final villain. And I've got to say, it's just really good. He makes him sound threatening, but at the same time, he does what the Japanese version is supposed to do. You see, the problem with Funimation's version of this dragon is that they make him just sound like a bloodthirsty monster, adding extra dialogue that doesn't belong into it, while this one makes him sound like a wiser, more dragon warrior. You know, he's a wiser, more mature dragon warrior that does what he is supposed to do for his own selfish reasonings. But yet again, he's still a warrior at heart, and he's not evil for the sake of being evil or bloodthirsty, but he does want his point and stuff reached out. This guy actually is able to pull down a really believable performance and give the character much more depth than just Sabat's, well, I'm just evil and I'm gonna rip off your head and etc. No, he makes him sound a lot more wiser and intelligent than Sabat's voice makes him sound in general. Give it a listen yourself. It may sound a little cartoonish, but I really love this performance, and it's just really well done as the final big bad.
This ends now, Saiyan! This is inconceivable. How can a lowly Saiyan monkey be faster than me? How dare you mock me? Even your new fusion power won't protect you from my blistering sunfire attack. I'm gonna dance on your grave, Saiyan! Oh yeah? I won't tolerate such insolence!
Now we're on to what it does different and what it does better. Basically, it took the dialogue from the Japanese source and it actually enhanced it. What do I mean by that? I mean that it really went for script. It went at it for word. Unlike Funimation, which was doing things like adding in dialogue where there was supposed to be silent scenes and just using completely wrong names. One of the biggest issues for me with the Funimation version of GT is the name changes. Now, all 7 Shadow Dragons do not go by their average, they go by a star name and etc. But in the Funimation version, they decide to give them each names like Haze Shenron, Omega Shenron, which was me doing the wrong thing. And the Japanese version, however, did not do that. They gave them a name by number kind of thing, and they gave it a Japanese type styled thing going on that matched more with their personality. And then on top of that, another example of what they did was with Oob. After Oob had absorbed Majin Buu, or they had merged together like Piccolo and Kami did in the Z section, they were given in the Funimation dub a nickname called Majube. And in the Japanese version, Majin means evil or magic or Madoshin, or, and it was kind of pointless and stupid to do that, and it was always a big nitpick of mine. After they merged together in the Blue Water dub and in the Japanese version, they kept his name Oob. They also kind of keep the pronunciation of the attacks in the Blue Water dub the same. And now, this was during the same air dates going on here. Well, GT in the Funimation dub, oh lord, we know what they did with their opening themes, and with that awful American background music where it's got this techno rap metal music during the fights, and it just does not have any of the charm that Bruce Faulkner gave the Z themes. I can understand wanting to Americanize the music for a younger and dumber audience like us at the time, but it just did not fit. To me, GT's music source with the Funimation dub is just god awful. I mean, it's terrible. Funimation itself would go and correct this with the green box sets where they would let you play the Japanese music while getting to watch it in the English dub. However, the Blue Water dub never did do this. They played the actual Japanese music throughout the entire run, and you probably heard in the examples of the voice recordings that I played, they kept the Japanese music. In fact, the only thing that they did that really Americanized the series was, well, where they played a version of Dan Dan themselves, and they kind of gave it a shorter English twist on it. That's about it, but they kept the Japanese heart and soul of it in. Now, this is where Funimation pretty much excels, when they had Vic Mignogna actually sing the Dan Dan opening himself and kind of giving it that more upper vibe feel. But here is the actual Ocean dub version of GT's intro by Blue Water themselves. Take a listen for yourself and tell me what you think.
With all my friends, making the boy a man again. It's a desperate search all across the universe. We've got to find them all. Gotta find those Dragon Balls. Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball GT.
So, music aside and dialogue aside, yeah, it was a much better feel, and it was a way more love letter to, well, the Japanese setting and the tone that the show was supposed to take. When a lot of people say that they hate GT's dub, especially the GT fans like me, they're talking about the Funimation dub. And people who haven't watched GT in the Blue Ocean dub, I honestly do feel sorry for. So, what do I think of, well, the Blue Water dub as a whole? Well, join me in the next segment. So my final thoughts for it, it is great. And it's a very good representation of Dragon Ball GT, keeping up with the original script, keeping the names, keeping good voice actors, and etc. all in check, the original Japanese background music when it first aired, and etc. I think us American fans really missed out by not getting to watch this version of the series. And, well, honestly, it does hurt GT a lot in general if you look at it from this point of view. GT isn't a masterpiece by any means. No, it's not. But it doesn't deserve as much hate as it normally gets from, well, super fans that love Dragon Ball Super and Z and etc. GT had a lot of effort put into it by Toei Animation alone, and without very little involvement from Akira Toriyama itself, it does deserve to have some love. And unfortunately for a lot of people, this dub can't be accessed as easy as, you know, the everyday shopper that likes to buy GT or watch GT or whatever. You have to really look up torrents and etc. to get to be able to view this one. However, it's worth the experience. Rewatch the entire series with this dub. It'll give you a brand new perspective of the series. The voice work is really good. The script is well done. And of course, the music and etc. with their own opening is so much better than Funimation ever offered to us. So what do I say as a final score for the series? Well, I'm going to say the Dragon Ball GT Blue Water dub is definitely worth watching for any hardcore Dragon Ball fans, and I give it an 8.5 out of 10. If you haven't seen this dub yet, I highly recommend watching it and giving it throughout new eyes. Even if you're a GT hater, watch it with this voice cast. You'll feel so much better, and you'll have different opinions on GT. If you hate GT anyway, well, you're probably going to hate this video and etc. Anyhow, that does it for this little retrospective of Dragon Ball GT. Woo! It was tough actually getting to do this video. I had a lot to say about it, and I wanted to talk about the voice cast in general. It was honestly pretty fun. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. If you didn't, well, leave some dislikes and leave some hateful comments. I really don't care. It helps with the algorithm anyhow. Anyway, if there's another anime retrospective series you want me to do, tell me in the comments. Always remember, I'm listening.
Hi, this is Peter Calamus. Many of you know me as Ralph, but I happen to be Mr. Tim's favorite Goku. Now, I'm here to tell you guys to like and subscribe to see more lists, reviews, and interviews. So, like and subscribe. I'm pointing here like it's right in front of me. Like and subscribe so you don't miss out. Huh? Yeah.